Great to welcome you all again to the segment. I'm Dadhichi from astrology.com.au. May 2017. This is my little introduction, my blurb, where I, tell you a little bit about what's on my mind. I normally don't know what I'm going to talk about till the camera's rolling, and I like it like that. And I actually utilize that method often with the way I do my readings as well over the past 35 years or so. I do like that spontaneous, intuitive response to the moment. And it's just occurred to me that fear is such a big driving force within human nature. I can speak from experience from the many thousands of people that I've seen. Obviously, I'm in a profession where people usually come to me when they have some fear, so maybe I'm being a little unfair, or am I? Because apart from those individual one-on-one readings that I do, day in and day out, year in, year out, I do notice a marked increase in the amount of fear in the world. And fear is an interesting thing, and you're probably wondering how this ties in with astrology. Well, let me jump ahead and just quickly say that Saturn, according to my research, is one of the planets of fear, along with its, I guess, its other agent, Rahu, or the North Node, the karmic point. This planet actually gives rise to fear, separation, and of course fear is really based upon the idea or the notion of separation, that we're different, that we somehow have something to be afraid of if someone has different coloured skin, different religion, different cultural value, different perspective on life, so on and so forth. But I raise this point because right now the planet Saturn is nearing the upper part of the horoscope in what we call the natural zodiac. That is, if we take the tropical Western system of astrology, and usually my readings are based upon this system of astrology when we talk here. But right now, on top of the fact that Saturn is moving towards the apex of the horoscope, that is in the natural zodiac directly overhead, where you would see the sun at midday, we see that it is retrograde. It is apparently in reverse motion. My researchers have shown that the retrogression of planets makes them very strong. It actually endows them with considerable strength, and for that reason Saturn right now would necessarily be increasing the amount of fear that we have as individuals, but also collectively. Which brings me to the use of fear by political and religious institutions throughout history to dominate and control the masses. And unfortunately, I see that happening again. I'm not here to argue the validity or the truth of some of the reports we hear. Right now there's a lot of misinformation, and that's been the buzzword right now. From just the innocuous little stories that you read on Facebook to some of the bigger issues, the bigger arguments politically, leading up to, say, the election of Donald Trump to the US presidency, and the whole Russian debacle of infiltrating the American political system. Apart from that, we must admit we can see the division amongst people. We can see the operation of Saturn and Rahu right now. Saturn moving in the upper part of the horoscope, where Pluto is, by the way. I've talked about that for years. It's a very long drawn out transit, indicating power, manipulation, transformation, and in some cases, depending on the aspects that are made to Pluto, ruthlessness, aggression, murder, wars and violence, devastation, all those really lovely things that we'd rather not talk about. And Saturn will shortly move into this area, and in due course over the next year and a half make contact with Pluto. So we'll be very watchful over that particular transit. which when Mars is also involved in that transit will bring with it some fearful things. But let's talk about that fear, because I want to go into that a little bit more. The fact that Saturn, Mercury and Jupiter are currently retrograde means that we have the opportunity to go back through time, to look at ourselves individually and ask ourselves the question relating to some of the most horrible things that have happened to us, which at the time would have evoked a hell of a lot of fear. But my question is, looking back at those events, how do you feel now? Were those fears justified? Look, I'm not saying that fear isn't justified. It's a genetically inbuilt part of our nature. It's designed to help us cope and to also protect us in times of danger. So I'm not negating that, but I'm saying that generally the little things we fear, even some of the bigger things like losing a job, or having to go and have stitches for a wound, a divorce. Some of these things are terrible, but the fear that those events evoked in the past are rarely as terrifying after the event as they were preceding those events. So what I'm saying is that yes, we need a healthy amount of fear in our diet, our life diets, but when we look at it, and this is the good thing about retrogression, that planets going retrograde, they do give us an opportunity to review where we were. So right now, if you're feeling any sort of fear, it is a perfect time for you to go back in time, look at that, just pick out 3 or 4 events in your life which were prior to the event deemed to be really terrible or something to be feared. And through your memory, go back into the event, passing through the event, coming out the other end, and in an unbiased fashion, ask yourself, was it really that bad? So what I'm saying is that it's an opportunity now. I want all of you to pretty much look at the situation you're in, look at the events or the circumstances or the people, the things in yourself that create this fear, and remind yourself that what happened in the past has not eventuated into the calamitous situations that you had at first expected. Now you need some coping mechanisms. It's one thing to say, hey, look at your past, those events didn't hurt you, but fear is a habit. Fear is a habit, and some of the ruling elite, politically, religiously, use this also en masse. The media is very much using this now to stimulate fear as a method of control. But it's one thing to say don't fear, but what are the mechanisms for coping? Normally I find that the habit of worry or fear is usually an outgrowth of an inability to refocus one's attention on something that is not fearful, something that is useful. If there's nothing you can do about the situation at hand that you fear, you may still not be able to simply let go of that. So you need to engage yourself. You need to engage your hands, you need to engage your mind, you need to engage your heart in activities that will naturally draw your awareness into different avenues of activity. That to me is the simplest, most effective way. The other adjunct to that is the use of breath. Just simply becoming aware of your breath. This is called a natural mantra, and it is the natural incoming and outgoing process of breathing, which when fully attended to, even just for a few minutes a day, if you can't just keep that up throughout the day, that is an excellent way to bring your mind back to a state of passiveness. In the ancient systems of astrology and Vedas, there's a principle there that says the source of thought and the source of breath are one and the same thing. Don't want you to rationalize that too much, accepting that your breath arises here 12 finger spaces within in what's called the heart region, and it also merges externally at the same distance outside. So bringing your attention to one of these points, usually they say on the internal part of this process of breathing, and resting your mind in that, bringing your attention to that, is really the fastest way from A to B. A being madness and fear, B being a peaceful state of being. And actually, the thoughts are said to arise in the same place, believe it or not. That requires protracted meditation for you to come to that same conclusion. But the best experiment, if you're dealing with fear and you want to get yourself back into a state of passivity, to bring those energies of Saturn under your control rather than vice versa. Because in Hindu astrology as well, the term for planets is graha. A graha is a planet, and graha literally means to seize or to take hold of. So planets do that. They grab hold of you. And if you don't have a mechanism by which you can escape that seizure, you are going to be in for a rough ride in life. So breath, my friends, just bringing it in, taking it out, becoming mindful of that. Practice makes perfect. You're not going to get to that state straight away. But in a short span of time, you will see that you are capable of bringing that planet, Saturn, and its effects, namely fear, worry, concern, dread, under your control. And that's what we want. We want to have all of you out there in a peaceful state of mind, not too perturbed by what's happening. Take care now, and let's move on to the individual horoscopes one by one for the month of May 2017. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.